Okay, thank you, Guy, and the VALUEx team for putting on this event and for asking me to introduce Monsoon, Pabrai, and the Drew Investment Fund. I believe that Monsoon has high integrity, is super smart, she has a process I can understand, and she's unusually well aligned with her investment partners. So when I heard that Drew was opening up to non-US investors, I rushed to be the first money into that vehicle. Female investment managers are much too rare. I learned over supper last night that they manage between 1 and 3% of just 1 or 2 or 3% of actively managed assets under management. And yet at the same time, the evidence is that they outperform. My hope is that in the years to come, my 3 daughters will have another example of a super successful female role model in their lives. As always, I'm looking forward to what she has to say. Over to you, Monsoon.
Okay. Thank you, Adam, for the very sweet and kind introduction. I still have yet to meet his daughters, but Adam is definitely a progressive father, progressive man who really does, I think, truly believes in female managers. And there's a couple in the room here today, so I hope you all ask questions after this. But yeah, so before we start, or I guess I'll kick us off, since today is about remembering Charlie, something Charlie talks about is, you know, you can have all the mental models, but they don't really matter unless you weave them together into a lattice work of things that make sense. And so I think every exciting idea I've had as I've developed as an investor is like a lattice work. And this is probably one of the more recent ones I've come up with, and I'm really excited to share it with you all. And yeah, I think tomorrow's meeting with Charlie will be really touching. And it's a shame he's not with us anymore, but he led a really great life. So, all right. Speaking of somebody who is still alive, Peter Lynch ran the Magellan funds at Fidelity from 1977 to 1990. During that period, he had over 29% annualized returns. And so if you had been smart enough to put $1 million with him in 77 in the summer, you would have ended up with more than 27.4 million, which is extremely astounding. In his book, Beating the Street, it's in chapter 19 if anybody is interested in reading it. And I'm a big proponent in rereading works just to stay refreshed, which is why this idea came up. But he actually talks about how he managed a mutual fund and he completely missed investing in the mutual fund industry. And here he names 7 mutual funds. He actually did invest in one mutual fund, or kind of company, United Asset Management, but he goes further to say that if you had taken your money and divided it into 8 folds and split it equally amongst those 8 companies that sell mutual fund or similar like products, from the beginning of 88 to the end of 89, you would have beaten the products that they sell by like 99%, or 99% of the products they sell. And so he compares it to the gold rush. The people that sold the picks and shovels did a lot better than the people trying to find gold. And anybody that wears Levi Strauss jeans, Levi Strauss started as a dry goods store during the gold rush in California. So they fared much better. We have a little bit of a back to the future moment. If we look at India today, 15% of their GDP, about 500 billion, is all they have in kind of like capital market type investments. And in the United States and in many European countries, that number is way over 100%. So historically, wealthy Indians mostly invest in real estate, gold, bank deposits under the mattress. And there's very strong secular movement towards ETFs, mutual funds, and public equities. And it's actually growing at twice the rate of GDP right now. And that will probably continue for some time. I know we have actually a good number of NRI Indians in the room, and I'm sure many of them can attest to that when you speak with them. But this is actually if you look into how many brokerage accounts are in India, in 2015 it was 25 million, pretty small, like the population's over 1 billion. 2 years later they add 5 million accounts. 3 years later they add 10 million accounts. And we had the biggest boom during the pandemic, kind of what we saw in the US with lots of people trading Robinhood, the GameStop, all that kind of not behavior I don't agree with, but it was there. And there's a lot of criticism that that's just like a one-time pandemic-only thing, but that's not the case. In 18 months, they added another 50 million brokerage accounts. And there are accounts with Robinhood-like companies in India. It's called like Zerodha or Grow, but we also have it on the other end too. So there is a benevolent God, and he wants to take you right back to 1977, and he wants to give you the ride that Mr. Peter Lynch missed. And I think Peter wrote about it in the book, knowing just to explain, like to really share it with the world, and I think that's why we need to listen to and reread old works. But here are 8 companies in India, publicly traded. A couple of them are available as ADRs or their parent companies, but they sell these kind of mutual fund or similar like products. India has a lot of organic growth with assets appreciating at like, 10 to 12% a year. And these people are adding more flows into their accounts that they already have. And you have an increase of accounts coming up. So it's just tailwind, it's crazy. And you can feel it when you're there. I was in India in February, and I'm at the McDonald's ordering my favorite meal. It's a McSpicy paneer. They deep fry oh my God, it's so good. If I go for a week, I have it like 5 times. But when I was standing in line, I was shopping, and I was just 3 people behind me, probably my age, were talking about their put and call options. Just local Indian kids. And I had never heard that before, actually, that rampantly. But that's all I have to say. Yeah, I think the only other thing I would like to add is that I don't see penetration being at over 100% in India in like the next decade or so. But penetration at 15% is pretty low, and I would maybe guess that in 20, 30 years it could be 40, 50%, but that's with GDP growing, with more penetration. And most of the CEOs of these companies actually on their conference calls talk about it, on their earning calls, like pretty often. And they've been saying it for maybe 5, 6 or so plus more years. So yeah, I think I'm cool for questions now. Oh, okay. Should we take this? Oh, can you walk with this? I would have walked more.
I'm going to start.
Hello. Oh, there's one.
My first question is, so when Monish started getting invited to the Charlie Munger dinners, I offered many things to Monish. I offered to become one of his children, one of his legal children. I offered to be a second wife, a first wife. I could have a sex change. He didn't take any of those options, but maybe you can tell us. Can you tell us a Charlie story?
Yeah, I think. Does this work? Oh yeah. Okay. So I would be my dad's date to many events, and we also, as a family, would visit his house in Los Angeles. And I'm trying to think of very notable things, but it's more just it was kind of like entering a different universe, walking into his house, seeing him sitting there with, I mean, people have probably seen photos online, but there's just books everywhere, and he's always reading something, and you walk in, he's mid-thought. He's been thinking about something, and the conversation just starts. But I think the most notable line I have, and I think this crowd will like it, is on Mau Tai. We were sitting in his living room, and there was a bottle of Mau Tai, and I think my dad had pointed it out. And then I think the first thing Charlie said is, you never sell that. And I think when everybody else sold Mao Tai, I just remembered that and said, well, if this guy says don't sell, we're not selling. And if anyone has tasted Mao Tai, it does not taste very good. And but yeah, and then Guy and I actually visited the Mao Tai factory together in 2017. Yeah, but you never bought the stock.
I bought and I sold.
You bought and sold. So he sold too. So don't sell. If you own Mao Tai, don't sell it.
So a couple of questions. Who's got a burning question? We have mics. So go ahead.
I think the
Take a mic. You need to get to a mic. And who's the second question? So Zubin will be the second question. You should start moving to a mic right now. But
well, I've been friends with Monsoon since I think I was 14 years old, so it was really fun to hear this presentation. So, on a similar vein to Guy's question, you've had dinner with Warren Buffett as well. I'm just curious if there's any fun takeaways or insights from that dinner, which I know was a long time ago, but
that was just lunch. Yeah, my sister and I sat on either side of Buffett at that lunch. And I think I don't know, there were so many things. We have a whole document of like the whole 3.5-hour conversation, but I think the main one, I don't know, the one that always stuck with me is that he looked me and my sister in the eye, and it's because we're women or young girls then, he said the most important decision you make is who you marry. And I think that goes for both partners in a marriage. It's really important who you pick to be your life partner. That's the easy one to take away.
So last question, and then we have to keep moving.
Yes.
Monsoon, I'm proud of you. I'm Lalit Jagtap, originally from Mumbai, India, but settled Chicago is home from '96. My one request to you, my daughter is born in Chicago. I'm guessing you are born in Chicago too.
Yes.
So she's 24-year-old. What's the advice you will give to a woman, girl, who has just started a job? And I worked in Wall Street accidentally. I started at a hedge fund in Chicago and left in 2017. What advice you will give to a daughter of mine and any other young girls who wants to get into money management or Wall Street and do a good job, capital for good?
You have to ask a lot of questions. You have to ask why, and you have to speak up. I think for young women, it's harder for us to speak up. But that's exciting for your daughter. And she should just work those crazy late nights and learn as much as she can, because it's the only few years you get that real opportunity. Yeah.
So because I'd already invited him, this will be the last question. Yes. Zubin.
Monsoon, hi.
Hi.
Many congrats on setting up Drew, and I think it's going to be amazing, I'm sure about that. Of the 8 names you took in about these asset managers in India, I won't take the name, but I've moved the regulator in India to ask them to remove their license. So I think it's to do with the fund managers and their integrity. So what are your thoughts there?
On those companies?
Yeah, these companies are as good as the fund managers are.
Yeah, they're as good as the fund managers are. I think if I'm a big believer in doing your own homework, some of these are very expensive, and some of these, I won't call them cheap, but they're just not as expensive, but you have incredible growth, and I think it is a little bit, a couple of them have very good managers, and you can tell from the letters they write and how they speak and kind of their tone on the earnings call. So I would just say, yeah, they're as good as their managers, and I would say I'm most compelled by Rajesh Shah at Edelweiss, who has come to Berkshire in Omaha, Karn Bhagat running 361, and then Motilal Oswal probably has the most number of retail brokerage accounts, and they have a really good scale-up, roll-up business. But yeah, they are as good as their managers, really. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks.
Thanks.
Monsoon, thank you for making it.
Thank you.